Greetings. In chapter 10 of this reading, Whence by John Wesley Bready, the chapter head being The Spirit of Equity and Fellowship. At this point, we're talking about the constructive social work of John Wesley and his cohorts. G.D.H. Cole, in a recent essay, says, quote, "We get an impression throughout Wesley's journal that he is appealing to persons incapable of an intellectual response, whose souls must be saved by other and more ferocious means." Of the revival in general, he suggests, that is Cole, that, quote, "setting out to catch men's souls by all means, it used methods which played upon the fears of the uneducated and the illiterate without qualm or remorse, and it was able to do this with less compunction, because from the outset it would have no truck with political democracy in any form," unquote. It's unfortunate that a man of Cole's influence should at this hour be reflecting the spleen of a Cobbett. Such remarks force one to doubt if Cole ever studied Wesley's journal, sermons, or other publications. He, like many other theoretic agitators, is annoyed with the revival because its huge following refused to be exploited for semi-revolutionary ends, but that it laid the foundations of self-help and prepared the way for later and saner democracy is indisputable. Who can deny, too, that the movement itself was a democracy of service, fellowship, aspiration, and attainment? Wesley's contribution to popular education, however, extends far beyond the stimulation and satisfaction of an adult desire for literature and knowledge. Wherever his teaching sank deep, parents desired education first for their own children and then for neglected youngsters around them. The result was a steady increase in schools, some supported by converted individuals of means, some by local societies, some, like Kingswood Seminary, by the United Societies. In London, both West Street Chapel and the Foundry ran schools. The first preaching house in Halifax was used also as a day school, which was taught by a local preacher. The Bradford Society, in 1766, built a school chapel, and so on all sides the rebirth of religion advanced education. One instance is on record of orphan children by society efforts being fully maintained and taught. The revival, too, was mother of the World Sunday School movement. 11 years before Robert Raikes began his famous work in Gloucester, Hannah Ball, Wesley's disciple, was conducting Sunday school work in High Wycombe, and Wesley himself lived to examine local Sunday schools with 1,000 children in attendance, and about 1/10 that number of voluntary teachers. Wesley's interest in the physical welfare of the underprivileged was of a piece with his zeal for their spiritual and mental emancipation. In 1746, he founded the first free medical dispensary in England. "I mentioned to the society," he notes, "my design of giving physic to the poor. About 30 came the next day, and in 3 weeks about 300. This we continued for several years, till the number of patients, still increasing, the expense was greater than we could bear. Meantime, though, through the blessing of God, many who had been ill for months or years were restored to perfect health." End of quote. In 1747 appeared Wesley's Primitive Physic, an easy and natural method for curing most diseases, a compilation which for over a century has been the butt of ridicule. But recently that beloved physician, Sir George Newman, long the official guardian of Britain's public health, has bestowed upon it high praise, pointing to the remarkable improvement in personal cleanliness, domestic hygiene, and general health which followed in the revival's wake. Sir George places Wesley among the vital pioneers of the national health movement, and the long-despised Primitive Physic among the effective instruments to that end. Certainly the book contains some odd remedies. For the approaching infirmities of old age, it prescribes tar water, or a decoction of nettles. But remember, it quaintly warns, the only radical cure is wrought by death. A deal of information was mediated through this treatise. Plain foods, fresh air, daily exercise, and contented spirits were medicines on which Wesley placed the highest store. And to assure purity of drugs, he advised people, where possible, to procure them at the apothecary's hall. Wesley had a special interest in electricity. Writings by Franklin, Priestley, and other authorities he avidly devoured, and his own experimentation convincing him of its healing power. He established free electrical treatment for the poor. Having procured an apparatus on purpose, he writes in 1756, I ordered several persons to be electrified who were ill of various disorders, some of whom found an immediate, some a gradual cure. From this time I appointed first some hours in every week, and afterward an hour in every day, wherein any that desired might try the virtue of this surprising medicine. 2 or 3 years after, our patients were so numerous that we were obliged to divide them. So part we electrified in Southwark. Let's read that again. So part we electrified in Southwark, part in the Foundry, others near St. Paul's, and the rest near the Seven Dials. The same method we have taken ever since. And to this day, while hundreds, perhaps thousands, have received unparalleled good, I have not known one man, woman, or child who has received any hurt thereby. So that when I hear any talk of the danger of being electrified, especially if they are medical men who talk so, I cannot but impute it to great want either of sense or honesty. End of quote. Free electrical and dispensary service, together with the distribution of health literature, were but typical of the humanistic initiative which on all sides the revival kindled. On occasions following marked calamities, Wesley and his followers, by cooperative methods, were feeding up to 150 persons a day in a single place. Constantly, in conjunction with their amazing system of prison, sick, and poor visitation, they raised money to clothe and relieve prisoners, and to buy food, medicine, fuel, or tools for the stricken and unfortunate. While the collection of raiment for the aged and half-naked was so persistent a feature of their work that generally it passed unobserved. The renaissance of vital religion in their hearts had made this despised people their brother's keepers, and brother to them had a comprehensive significance.